You're on.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Greeley Area Chamber of Commerce, welcome to Common Grounds, where a lot can happen over coffee. My name is Jamie Henning, and I'm the president and CEO of the Greeley Area Chamber of Commerce, proudly representing over 700 businesses in the Greeley area. We know this has been a challenging time for our business community, but we're looking forward to the economic recovery, and we want to do the absolute best we can to help you pivot and keep your business moving ahead. We will be hosting these live on our Zoom channel at 9 o'clock every other Tuesday, so please make sure to tune in. You will not want to miss them. I'm joined today by some tremendous community and today regional partners and leaders, and it's my honor to be able to create a platform where we can keep you updated on the Chamber of Commerce, stories and updates about our city and the Northern Colorado region we all love. We are grateful to be working with so many tremendous leaders. And just as a thing that I wanted to mention this morning, part of my mantra has always been collaboration over competition. And I can tell you that's more than a mantra for the people on this call. We work together a lot, and I really want to thank them for all the collaboration. That is something we put into practice every day. I cannot say enough good things about each person on this call today and their care for our business group and our community. We want to encourage you all to stay behind the chamber as we work through this with our businesses. We want to push customers your way, be good communicators, provide business resources, and public policy relief. This work is particularly important during COVID to be interconnected and has been only amplified. And we want to bring you this forum so you can stay in touch with the latest developments. You can hear this information when you need it most. And we're proud to say we've had over 15,000 views of the 3 chamber coffees we've done so far. So thank you to our guests. I'm sure we'll only get that message out a little more this morning. On our agenda this morning, we're going to have about 5 minutes for each of our speakers to give an update on their leadership role and how they're helping tackle things in their communities as regional partners, as the Northern Colorado Legislative Alliance, and as a chamber family. This morning, our guests include our City Council Chair and Mayor Pro Tem, Dale Hall. Welcome, Dale. Thanks for being on again. Dale's a regular on the show. For the first time, we want to welcome Weld County Commissioner Kevin Ross. Thank you so much for being on this morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We also want to welcome the President and CEO for the Fort Collins Area Chamber of Commerce, our friend David May. Good morning, David.
Hi, Jamie. Hey, everybody.
Great to have you on. Also the President and CEO of the Loveland Chamber of Commerce, our friend Mindy McCloughan. Mindy, welcome.
Thank you. We're good to be here.
And then Sandra Solin, founder of Capital Solutions and our lobbyist for the Northern Colorado Legislative Alliance. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning.
Well, we want to welcome everyone to the show, and I think we're ready for the speakers and our updates this morning. So our first guest is going to be Dale Hall. Dale serves on the Chamber's Board of Directors. He understands business and is a longtime leader for Greeley, serving now as City Councilman Mayor Pro Tem for Ward 4. Thanks for joining us, Dale. I'm going to kick it off with you.
Thank you, Jamie. We at the city have been really busy. As you know, the last couple of times we've updated things to the point where we can now be more involved as long as we're doing the social distancing and that type of thing. So city staff is working very hard on city services and opening up city services to the public. We've had concepts basically where phone calls were answered and returned and that type of thing previously, and we've had our obvious street crews and those that are in the emergency world out from day one. But now the big deal is all of the restaurants opening as of tomorrow in Greeley, because we're working under the state's PHO. And then right now we're in a position where we're looking and trying to help out all the restaurants in areas that they want to try and spread out if they need to in order to get enough patronage to pay the bills, that type of thing. The concern is right now is with bars. They're not being allowed to be opened at this point in time, but restaurants with liquor licenses can be, which I'm not sure I understand that process, but however, the problem with that is the liquor licenses of a restaurant has a certain area within it that it has to be able to serve the liquor. So there's a requirement by state statutes that they have an amendment, and it can be a temporary amendment to the actual liquor license that they hold. So we're working very hard at trying to get that process crunched down as quickly as possible. We've got some 10-day requirements from the state that in statute that says you have to have notice given to the area before you can adjust a temporary license. So our liquor license authority in Greeley is working very, very diligently to try and make that fit within its time frame and still getting people to be able to get out there and moved. As you know, sidewalks and parking lots are under the consideration, and we have planning commission or planning departments working to try and make sure that there's not an issue from that direction. But we are having a little bit of a debate going on with our downtown plazas. There's about 50% of the people wanting to close the downtown plazas for the next few months, if not longer, and then just have them for, sort of like the Go Cup process that we have on Fridays. And then the other half of the people don't want them closed because they still have needs for travel and people trying to come in and to their businesses. So that's kind of it's been a debate, and we've heard from both sides at this point in time. I think the DDA is still trying to figure out if there's support one way or the other, and it seems to be fairly well divided. But we're also working throughout the city, not just through the downtown, on trying to get those areas opened and make it more palatable to have a restaurant and have those types of things happening. And of course, I'm sure Jamie's going to talk about the Greeley Area Recovery Fund. There is still funds available there for businesses that need to come out and have a little extra help to try and keep things moving. And then I'm glad Sandra's here because the legislature opens today, and being a former legislator, I understand how that's working, and now we got to worry about ourselves again. So there's always something there. So I think that pretty much is an update for me. Thank you.
Yeah, Dale, thank you so much for your update. Everyone on this call is bullish about business, and as you know, they're very vocal about their needs. So I've talked to a number who are bringing creative solutions to the City Council, and we appreciate your consideration on all of those things. We know you're hustling to try to help them as well, so thank you for that. And yes, we're excited to hear more about the legislative session, and it's a time where definite monitoring needs to happen as with budget cuts, we're going to all be giving a look at what those priorities are and helping to set those. So thank you for your update this morning, Dale. Appreciate it. Our next guest is one of our newest county commissioners, former Mayor of Eaton, Kevin Ross. He's passionate about transportation, protection of the county's oil and gas and ag industries, which we care about deeply, and he's here today to join us. He sees Weld County as an economic beacon for the state. I took this directly off of one of his sites. We do as well. And he wants to help our businesses and families. He's been a small business owner for over 16 years. So thank you so much for joining us for the first time this morning, and welcome to Kevin. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jamie. I appreciate the opportunity to be on this morning. Several things we have going on here at the county, as you guys have probably been reading in the local news or seeing on TV or whatnot. We've been quite busy. But since COVID came into, I guess, all of our lives, which was coincidentally 2 weeks after I became a county commissioner. So my fellow commissioners say I'm the one that brought COVID to Weld County. So it's a good joke, but always got to have a little banter back and forth. But we've been working diligently at this process, and we've been working on several fronts. So first and foremost, I wanted to give you guys an update on a few of the things that Weld County is doing recently. We just put out a press release Friday. The Weld County Commissioners approved a testing program to go countywide, and we are going to be testing 10% of Weld County's population. It's going to cost us roughly $250,000, but what we're looking to do is get a true snapshot of where we are as a county, not just in our high municipal areas like Greeley, which is our flagship community, but really countywide. Get a quick snapshot of where we're at. So to date, we've gotten about 13,000 tests done. We need to get to about 33,000 tests. We're going to be getting that completed within the next 60 days. What that's going to allow us to do is then find out if we have other hotspots that we haven't identified. We're also going to do some tracking within that testing that does multiple tests on individuals. So we can see that progress and see if we're watching the virus actually spread through groups of individuals. So we're going to try and get that snapshot too. At that end of that 60 days, we'll go ahead and reassess and figure out what we need to do next, whether we need to go ahead and increase that testing to 30,000 individuals more to get to that 20% or even higher. So we're waiting to see that data and really make those determinations upon the data set. It's kind of weird. We've wanted to be testing all along. As Weld County Commissioners, we've put in 18 requests to actually get testing kits into our state. Of those 18 requests, we only had gotten 2 fulfilled throughout the entire pandemic. And so now that we're actually getting access to these testing kits, we're quite excited to get the community involved in this and get those out to individuals. And that those tests will go out to not only symptomatic people, but those that may be asymptomatic or have been close to individuals that have proven positive for COVID-19. We also have all the staff, the tracers and everybody in effect, our epidemiologists, to then be able to derive that information, take it out, contact individuals in the community who may have been in contact with other individuals that are hot. And maybe we can drill down to, okay, it's spreading from this place of business or this community place, so that we have a better idea of that picture. We also just approved another round of PPP for the county. To date, we have provided approximately $750,000 worth of PPP equipment to all of our first responders and everyone across the county. We're doing that free of charge for everybody as we're trying to keep everybody as safe as possible. We continue to work on the CARES Act and the funding coming out of that for local governments, municipalities, and the counties themselves. Commissioner Kirkmeyer has really spearheaded that movement. I know Sandra can probably talk to this as well, as she has been helping out Commissioner Kirkmeyer in that regard as well. But that's one of those things that we're trying to do, so that is the money's coming in from the feds to help reimburse for costs of COVID-19. We have to stay on top of that. Now, Weld County is used to the audit process with the floods that we experienced back in 2013. And so that's not really a big thing for us to keep track of those funds. We're already got it set up in our wheelhouse per se, so that we're ready to go when that comes in. One of the other great things we're working on for business owners and for individuals all across Weld County is the delay of property taxes. We tried this initially once COVID-19 hit through one of the governor's orders. We interpreted it that it allowed us to give individuals the right to essentially delay those property tax payments with minimal penalties. So we were trying to push that out till October 31st. And right now, well, as soon as we did that, the governor said we misinterpreted his rule. And so we have been working on that diligently again with Sandra, but to roll that back out to help our business owners, to help our individuals, everybody across Weld County, our ag producers, oil and gas, you name it, so that it keeps that cash in their pocket, keeps it liquid for longer to help them cover the costs associated with COVID-19. We're also working with our taxing districts so that we can backfill the taxes that they would be missing, like school districts, in that short time frame that we're extending it so that they're not doing without. We just believe it's that important to try and keep businesses and individuals afloat and give them that additional opportunity. Oil and gas has been stricken hard in Weld County, as anyone can imagine. The moment this hit, I spearheaded, along with Don Warden, our finance director, really looking at our budget, looking how we're going to be impacted with this crisis. And along with oil and gas, because Weld County is quite dependent upon that, our communities are. And we redid our budget looking at $30 to $35 a barrel oil. Well, we didn't anticipate putting a negative in front of that price per barrel of oil. And so we're looking at that with quite a bit of concern, but fortunately oil has rebounded back up. We're looking at some cuts here in the county, but as a county perspective, we will not have to furlough any employees or lay off any employees. We have adequate reserves, and we feel that the budget's in a good position for us in that regards. Recently, Dr. Wallace announced his retirement as the director of our health department, and I want to congratulate him. He has done 25 years of amazing service for the residents of Weld County and served them well. He's done a great job throughout this pandemic. I wanted to spend time with his family, and I just can't say thank you enough to Dr. Wallace for the great job he has done. I've also taken that on myself and spearheaded that along with Don Warden to redraft really the role that we're looking at for that director of health, and we're taking that on right now. And as we look forward, we anticipate it taking us a while to find a replacement for Dr. Wallace. He had a lot of great attributes and great characteristics that make it hard to replace that in one person, but we'll take our time to make sure we find the right person. And with that, in Weld County, we're forging ahead. We have great people here, and we're excited with all of our communities and people around as we get moving, and hopefully we get to that place of normalcy again. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the update this morning. A number of things you touched on that are collaborative work, and I'm sure Sandra will touch on as well. The work around property tax is incredibly important, especially oil and gas. Many don't realize Weld County is the top oil and gas producing county in the nation. Many think of Texas and Oklahoma and other places, but we're right alongside. So that's going to be very important as we work ahead. So yeah, we'll let Sandra touch base on that a little more. And thank you for your work to get that information out to our audience today. We appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jamie.
Absolutely. Our third guest today is President and CEO of the Fort Collins Area Chamber of Commerce, David May. He was one of the first people to contact me and consistently support me on my arrival here in the Northern Colorado region. David loves it when we talk about him, so I'm gonna throw some accolades his way. He's always very humble, but a chamber president at 24 years old. He's led and stewarded several chambers to success, worked for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and now a 5-star chamber in Fort Collins leading the way. In the chamber industry, I think having our volunteers actually talk about us is one of the better ways to get across the work we do, because they're so important to the work we do. Yvonne Myers from Columbine Health is one of our shared members, and he said she was one of the best board presidents he had in his tenure, but she said he was one of the smartest people she knew in his ability to assess the situation, bring process to it, and create next steps. He was one of the people who sees the big picture. So I will second that in the work I've worked on with him. We're excited to be your partner in Northern Colorado, and the floor is yours, friend.
Jamie, thank you. It's good to be with all of you this morning. So like all of you, starting a couple months ago, as this started to roll out, we spent time recalibrating the way we want to get our work done. What could we do? What would be delayed? What would we permanently delay? How do we keep people safe? How do we get our work done? So all of that was early on. Then we quickly moved into responding. How do we help the business community respond to what was happening? We put out lots of information to our members about the public health advisories, ultimately the mandates, financing options. We worked with actually the Greeley and the Loveland chambers, and we put on some webinars together to get that information out, and just pushed out lots of information to our members. We also lit up a Larimer County small business loan program. It's a $5 million program. Currently, it's capitalized at about $4 million, so we're still fundraising for that. It was interesting when you watched early on what was happening. There was a sense, especially when the governor made his announcement, closing down the state, or the stay-at-home order, that business was closed down. That wasn't the case. You had a lot of businesses that were still open. So we lit up a website called Open for Business, and it was an opportunity for us to continue to help the business community tell its story. What are their hours? Are they open? Are they not? How do you reach them? And so that was one of the responses that we had. We did that in conjunction with some of the other chambers in the area. NOCOrecovers.com. What was interesting about this situation as it rolled out was we were getting all kinds of information from all kinds of sources, our national associations, various business groups, our congressional delegations from the state. And it was all great stuff, but it was also confusing because it was all stated in different ways from different sources at different times. And so we worked with the economic development groups and chambers in the region and lit up a website called NOCOrecovers.com. And so it's been a one-stop place where people could go to get that kind of information. So that's been a good general resource for all of us. Kevin mentioned this, but the lack of personal protective equipment was an issue and still is. And so we lit up a website called NOCOSafetySupply.com. And the intent of that is to, if for example, a Loveland company called Solutions produces these face guards, well, how do they let customers know that, or potential buyers? And so this website has been a way to do that. So we've worked very well with all of you on the response side of it. Now we're talking about the reopening side of the conversation, pushing out lots of information on the restaurants, how can they open safely, et cetera. So we'll continue to push that information over the next few weeks. We're already beginning to talk about recovery, and we can talk maybe more about that later, Jamie, but I think the discussion for us is what has been the damage that's been done. This was a healthcare crisis. It closed down the business sector dramatically and quickly. It's caused dramatic damage to the economy, lots of unemployment, lots of businesses that have been damaged by this. So assessing what that means and then beginning to move into the positive aspect of saying, what can we do as an economic development chamber community, as well as working directly with our public sector partners to make sure that we are doing everything we can in an economic development sense to help the region go forward. So, and then the final thing I'll say is, all of that that I described has been going on in our various communities and sometimes very closely together. But then there are the routine things that have been going on as well. An example would be I'm wearing my I-25 lapel pin. We're still focused on that. And Sandra and I have spent a lot of time working on that. We're now in more of a defensive posture, trying to keep the money that we have, because there have been discussions about moving $50 to $150 million that's been committed to North I-25 off of that. So in addition to all of the work that I described and kind of responding to COVID, there are the other things that we're doing as well. So anyway, thank you. It's good to be with all of you this morning. And Jamie, you've been great to have in the region. So thank you for being such a great partner.
Absolutely. Hey, David touched on something that I think is really important, and that is how nimble nonprofits and especially chambers have been during this time. And so I think one of the things we're really trying to do is listen to our members and respond. And a lot of those websites he mentioned are as a result of that. I'll talk a little at the end about the Greeley Area Recovery Fund and Greeley to Go, but just trying to listen to our businesses and where they need us to hop in, and that's what chambers do well. So thanks for being a great partner, David. Again, I'm glad that we were doing the work on transportation and you and Sandra were doing the work before all of this happened, because it's important for your priorities to be stated when times get tough around budgets, right? So again, positioned as well as I think we can be right now, and we'll keep working on transportation. It's incredibly important. So our fourth guest today is Mindy McCloughan, president of the Loveland Chamber of Commerce. She's been a leader and friend, and love working with her on NCLA. The Northern Colorado Legislative Alliance work is incredibly important, and it binds all of us together. And I know Sandra will talk about it here in a bit. But for Mindy first, she came to Colorado from Texas, which explains her clever wit and her Mindyisms, which I know we give her a hard time about. But she has a tenure of over 20 years in the Chamber, economic development, community development, and tourism. And I'm going to also mention something her board chair said about her understanding of how to maintain dynamic relationships partnerships between the chamber and its partners weighs heavily in their success. We're consistently impressed with Mindy's experience and priorities for the chamber and her tenacity. And that's the word I hear a lot among chamber CEOs, always fighting for business. She's the right person to lead the chamber into the future. So she, David, and I enjoy a level of camaraderie, tenacity, and some hard times ahead, but also a great chance to be bullish for business. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mindy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jamie, and thanks for hosting this as well as the invite. If you don't mind, I might possibly steal this program for our members because it's watching you has been great. But you've actually hit the ground running since you got here, so I must say I'm extremely proud of you. As there's nothing like a little trial by fire to get baptized into your community. And in this case, the region. For me, when I arrived, it was the flood of 2013, and clearly COVID-19 has been that's what did it for you, sister.
Yeah.
And since our buddy over here, David's been in the industry for over 40 years, I'm not sure what his trial by fire was, but it may have been the transition from maybe loincloth to men's big and tall retail store. I don't know, but I'm sure something did it for him. But
War of 1812.
Right. So, but seriously, all joking aside, I mean, these days you have to find something to laugh about to keep from crying. But those pre-existing relationships in place with our regional leaders has been key to our successes thus far. And now as we transition into that recovery strategy that David mentioned earlier. And I must say on Friday, there was a webinar that UC Health put out for COVID and opening safely. So if you haven't had the opportunity to see that, it was very informative and extremely beneficial. So we're going to get that recording and push it back out to the members. So I know that that was a regional initiative too. So, but as David mentioned, we are transitioning from response to recovery. And one thing looking ahead for me, I'm greatly concerned about a big issue facing our businesses as we transition is the unemployment insurance solvency surcharge with increased premiums for all businesses due to unemployment fund becoming insolvent next month. This impact will be devastating to our businesses. And for some of our small businesses, if COVID didn't bankrupt them, this surcharge very well may do so as it comes out on the back end. So that's something I'm very passionate about. And I think we need to get, I clearly don't know what the answer is right now, but we need to get in front of our state and federal representatives to address this issue for our businesses. So I know NCLA will be assisting us in this process. As you know, as chamber leaders, we know that our investors, their investment dollars, for them sometimes it's like purchasing insurance because they look to us to protect them from issues impacting their ability to do business, as well as to cover them from unintended consequences that what we're suffering from right now. So with that, I'll transition to a few things that Loveland's doing. Our chamber provides small business development training and specialized counseling through our Loveland Business Development Center, which is run through my office. And, we transition from that individual counseling to help them in their business needs to assisting with PPP, idle loans, issues around loan forgiveness, the business recovery resources and programs. And we'll continue to do that as we move into this recovery phase, but it's going to look different in getting those consultants in to help these businesses, as clearly we're building the plane as we're flying it, as you've heard said many times. But we also partnered with a group called IamLoveland.com and launched an initiative called A Big Heart for Small Business. It's a micro grant program by which community members could purchase products, or the I Am Loveland swag, if you will. And then a large portion of their purchase was donated to a business of their choice. And that donation was then matched at 100% through our Live Loveland Fund, which is a 501c3 through Loveland Strategic Partnership. And so we had larger donors put money towards that initiative. But the neat thing that really came out of that was when you donated, you could leave a special message for your business of choice. And those messages, sentimental messages, were then passed on to that business. And what we heard coming back out of that was not so much about the money they received, even though it was a small grant, but those words of encouragement in many cases were exactly what that business needed, as the shot in the arm to give them, the courage to just keep fighting the good fight and keep their doors open. So, and the latest program we're working on with City Hall is to roll out a Loveland patio program. It's an outdoor dining program citywide. So that initiative just came about last week as the county's variances were submitted and approved. And so you've seen, I'm sure on your social media site, some of our restaurants are already opened and starting that process. So we're looking forward to that piece. As you know, tourism is a huge economic engine for our state. So finding ways to get our state reopened and get those tourists back here and spending money to stimulate our economy is going to be imperative. And then the last little bit, a little fun fact that we did for our area high school seniors was we facilitated a program to celebrate and honor our next generation of leaders with a high school senior class 2020 Walk of Honor, a banner program. And so we lined the south shore of Lake Loveland with colorful banners with all of the seniors' names and logos and colors. And it's been very rewarding to see not only the beautiful banners line the south shore of Lake Loveland, but the seniors come out in their cap and gown, which, by the way, they've worked 12 years for this very moment in time, only to have a pandemic strip it from them. So the seniors are coming out in their caps and gowns with families, taking pictures out on the South Shore, and they're just making the best out of, a most difficult situation. So moving forward, we're just continuing to work with the city and also doing budget analysis on what that looks like for us and our community, and just trying to stay positive and work as closely as we can with our businesses to get them open effectively, efficiently, and obviously safely. But I'm encouraged by the NCLA and the initiative, because we're on phone calls. I think Sandra, we're on the phone call with Sandra probably 3 times a week sometimes. And we've all worked really well together, even if we do poke fun. David's just an easy target to do that at. So anyway, Jamie, thanks for allowing us to be here. And I won't take any more time because I'll let us get to the real, meat of this morning, and that's NCLA and regional initiatives with our legislators.
Mindy, thanks so much, and thanks for your heart for community. I think the thing all of the chamber leaders on the call want to get across is we represent all business, right? Large industry, but a great portion of our membership are these small businesses, some of the most impacted during this time. So your notes, messages, and calls mean a lot, in addition to the dollars we're trying to develop to help bolster them during this time. So don't forget to do that. It really does, and I hear that from a lot of them. All right, well, our final guest before we hop into some questions for all of the guests today is Sandra Solin of Capital Solutions. She represents us well as the lobbyist for our Northern Colorado Legislative Alliance with Fort Collins and Loveland, and we're proud to work with her. We know Sandra spends many of her mornings and evenings over coffee, tediously working through bills we may need to support or monitor, and we want to discuss some of those issues coming up today with the start of the legislature, and thank you so much for keeping your eye on everything you do for us and helping to advocate for our businesses. It's really important. So I'm going to turn it over to Sandra.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate it. And it's always so lovely to see everyone, and the leadership that you all bring to our community, to our region is just unparalleled, I must say. I think that Northern Colorado region and the collaborative way in which we work together for the entire region while making sure that our individual communities are taken care of is truly unique in the state, and I would also argue perhaps even in the country, and I'm just so thrilled to be a part of it. The work that the individual chambers are doing, again, so proud to be a representative of the passion that you all bring to your business, and I have to say, as part of that effort, but to your chamber members, gosh, you are so lucky to have those representatives as your leaders in the community to keep you going in this very difficult time. A number of issues have been raised that we are working on. Yes, NCLA has continued to be incredibly active during this time. The legislature suspended its work March 13th specifically, and will be returning this morning actually to renew their work, and we will be fully engaged in that effort. But in that interim period, the NCLA on your behalf has been continuing our engagement with elected leaders, most notably on the front end with our federal delegation, U.S. Senator Bennett and Senator Gardner, to engage on the CARES Act, the PPP, and making sure that businesses across our region were taken care of through that effort. And the response that we received from those members has been really valuable to us, and I believe to them as well. And so we've been happy to bring that dialogue to our chamber members, our boards of directors as well, and really important. And then with state leaders has also been an important dialogue, again, keeping them engaged with the needs of business throughout this difficult time for all of us. And this response has had just tremendous effect on our economy. And again, I think uniquely, Northern Colorado has been doubly hit, as Commissioner Ross noted, the oil and gas industry and the importance of the oil and gas industry to not only Weld County, but the entire region. The interconnect that the energy industry brings to this entire region it has been essential and foundational to our history. And to see it doubly affected, actually triply affected by virtue of other policy decisions that were previously made under Senate Bill 1, it's been that much more important for us to be at the forefront of resolving issues that were really important. So today, the legislature comes back, and again, we will be fully engaged. Let me touch on a few things that have been mentioned here, but I will say of highest priority is ensuring that any policy moving forward is of value and of benefit to recovery. We are operating in a wholly different environment as we engage with legislators, because they have certain protocols in which they will be operating. And so a lot of our communication will be through electronic means and phone calls and the like, but know that we are protecting your interests there. Again, let me touch on a few of the items that we'll be actively engaged in. Commissioner Ross mentioned the property tax relief. That is something that has been of primary concern. Liquidity in this environment is paramount to ensuring that you all get through this effort, and paying that property tax bill, that can be a significant nut of funding and of dollars that could mean the difference between your staying in business or not. And so we are working with legislative leaders. Weld County has done an amazing job of being proactive and offering the opportunity to shore up budgets for local districts. And so that has facilitated our ability to have conversations with legislative leaders about a policy proposal that will allow any county to offer a reduction or a waiver altogether of penalties for late payments, which would afford you the opportunity to hold on to that cash. Each county will have to make that proactive decision, but that is something that we want to provide that flexibility to local governments to provide that for their local governments. And I know our region is, once that authority is granted legislatively, will quickly move to offer that type of relief, which will be really important. So that's of ultimate and key importance in this session from a proactive standpoint. Mindy mentioned the unemployment insurance solvency surcharge. This, as she mentioned, could be another one of those factors that for some businesses could make or break their future viability. And Colorado is structured in such a way that once the fund runs out, we begin to draw upon federal resources as a loan, but then that repayment will trigger a surcharge upon every business, regardless of the utilization of that surcharge of that fund, quite frankly, which is one of the elements of the UI fund that is coming to light and we're becoming quite aware of. But the demand upon the unemployment insurance fund is unprecedented, a word that I'm kind of getting tired of using, as I imagine you all are, but certainly unprecedented, and that demand is creating challenges for all of us and will in the future. And so we're actively looking for ways in which we can provide some relief on that end, both with our state leaders and our congressional delegation, as Mindy mentioned, and we will continue to pursue that actively, because we know that that is, again, one of those critical pieces that is really essential for business in their relief. David mentioned transportation. We do continue our important work around transportation funding, and the dynamic with the state budget and the economic forecast in Colorado has been pretty grim. $3.5 billion in cuts are having to be made by the state legislature, and that trickles down to a number of the places in which Northern Colorado has been very proactive and active, transportation being one, higher ed being another. But on the transportation front, we have been in a defensive posture. We've been remarkably proactive in securing dollars for the North I-25 corridor. Again, through the collaborative work of our region, again, one of those places that we have as a region been looked at as a model of the way in which you work together to secure a very focused objective. And we've been successful in that regard, but now we're in a defensive posture to ensure that that holds. And through the collaboration that we've had with CDOT staff and leadership, along with leaders around the region, we've been able to find some solutions for the challenge that was presented to CDOT on the funding side. Higher ed, I mentioned from a budgetary standpoint, they are some of the early cuts that come out of any reduction in revenue for the state, and this time is no different. The Joint Budget Committee just announced some significant cuts to them. Fortunate that there's some dollars that come from the CARES Act, as Commissioner Ross mentioned, that will flow to higher ed and to help them, but it certainly won't be enough. The hurt will be real for our universities, and of course the decisions about how they bring students back will have tremendous impact upon your communities, as Greeley and Fort Collins are highly intertwined with their university systems and the economics that those bring into the system. Commissioner Ross also mentioned the CARES Act, and as he mentioned, we are actively making sure that the local governments are getting the funds that they need out of those available federal resources to backfill the loss of revenue as a consequence of COVID. And Commissioner Kirkmeyer, as he mentioned, has been very proactive in pursuing those funds and ensuring a fair, equitable split and allocation of those dollars from state down to the local governments. And that's been really key. Back to sort of this legislative, as I wrap up, I will just say our mantra to our legislative leaders as we dive into the legislative session this morning has been do no harm. It is essential that we look towards the future and recovery and an appreciation and understanding of the essential health and viability of business means the health and viability of our state, and our region is critical to the health and viability of our state. I often say in my conversations with decision makers, as Northern Colorado goes, so goes Colorado. And it truly is, we truly do have that level of impact to our state and quite frankly to our country. So thank you, Jamie, so much, and thank you all for your leadership.
Sandra, thank you so much for your comments. You know, our work at the local, state, and federal level is a point of pride for all the leaders on this call. The North Star for every one of our NCLA meetings is, how does what we're discussing today best represent business and their interests? So that's the question we're consistently asking ourselves and really trying to hone in on is, how can we do the best work for the businesses that are investing in our organizations and are working with us? I also should thank Dale for his work and all of our local elected officials for being business friendly and creating a business friendly environment. But the public-private partnership on the Greeley Area Recovery Fund was unprecedented, to use that word again, but it really was, and we're really grateful for your work with us on that. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into some of the questions today. I'm anxious to hear from the speakers we had on this call, and anyone can answer these, so there's no true format to this, but I'm going to start with economic recovery because I think that's probably the top item on all of our minds. The number one question from our business community and our chambers right now is how we move into the economic recovery phase for our businesses. And what does that look like? How do we help them become resilient, safe, open, and educated is kind of how I'm going to premise that today. So I'll go ahead and turn that out to our speakers and let you give some ideas on what you think that looks like and what you're doing maybe to assist in that.
So I'll take a stab at it. I think part of the new thing that we're doing is first of all, it's key, just like everyone's mentioned on the show today, is we have to get businesses open, right? And there's great guidelines out for them to do it successfully, yet do it safely for their patrons. But I really think it's going to be a new marketing, a target marketing that they're going to be bringing forward. Whereas they may have been used to marketing their product more, I imagine they're going to be shifting that dynamic to the safetiness and how clean their facility is and what they're doing to keep people comfortable coming in and doing business with them. And I really see that as we shift. I'm doing it in my own business and saying, this is what I'm doing for you to keep you safe so that you'll be comfortable in doing business with me. And we got to bring that confidence back to the consumer to make sure that they want to come out and exchange with us. And I think businesses are starting to find that niche right now as I'm looking out on, the Facebook universe and all of our social media enterprises. That's kind of that niche that they're trying to find. And I think that's going to be step one, in my opinion.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, businesses are used to looking for solutions, but it's an unusual time, right? And what sources to look to for them is really important.
Absolutely.
Other thoughts?
Jamie, I would just like to say that the city council is in the opinion that we need to help businesses get back together rather than be in their way. So that's what we're trying to do completely from the start, is assist and not be a detractor.
I think the perceived sense of safety that the commissioners talked about is exactly right. People need to feel safe coming in and out of business. But I'll also agree with this comment. Get business open again. We slammed the door shut so quickly on business, and it's damaging schools, our ability to get things done through our local government. It's obviously really damaged a lot of our companies. So get them open. I think another thing, looking a little further down, Jamie, in the year, we don't know the path of this disease, and so hopefully it burns itself out this summer, but it could come back this fall. It could come back early next year, and our hope would be we're going to be very, very diligent about that and make sure that we're communicating to our public health officials to be cautious about slamming the door shut on business again. I don't know about you or about Mindy or other chambers around the region, but they didn't talk to us before they took the actions that they did. And so just being a little more careful now that we know more about the disease, if this resurfaces again, just be a little more measured in how we respond to it from a public health perspective. I think history, and this is controversial, which I step into all the time, but I think history will prove that we really overreacted to this, and it is a serious health threat. So I'm not saying it's not, but I think the reaction was an overreaction, and it's going to cause significant damage to people's careers and businesses for really several years in front of us. So it's unfortunate, and let's not do that again.
And I would agree and second that, what David said, as well as Commissioner Ross and as well as Dale. We really had to step up and be bullish, I'll use your word, Jamie, and to ensure that we had a seat at the table when those decisions were being made. So we now have that task force in place. We have a seat at the table. They are looking at us as the voice of business for our community. So Communication is imperative. Even yesterday, as a holiday, I was in communication with one of our other businesses that feels like he's kind of fallen through the cracks with the county's orders. So we're working diligently with him this morning after this call to make sure that he was not one of the lost ones that fall through the cracks. So I think it's just about our perspective and making sure that no more unintended consequences, or minimize those unintended consequences as a result of some of the decisions that's been made.
You know, Jamie, both you and I think Sandra both mentioned partnerships, and one of the things that works really well. I think that's true. We have our own individual communities, and we'll tussle around issues from time to time, but that's part of the magic of Northern Colorado is we do really work well together. We respond well together. So looking forward, I think you're talking about recovery. So I think looking forward, one thing that's going to be really important for us is that we spend time as a region understanding what has happened and saying, what are we going to proactively do together? And I think we do that through NCLA. We have the economic development groups work well together. We've got good, close relationships with them. And working with our county and city and town governments, with the private sector, working through groups like the chambers and economic development groups becomes really important going forward. So just understand what's happened to us and then be proactive to say, what's standing in the way of the recovery? What can we proactively do? But in many ways, what can we do to get out of the way so we can foster that entrepreneurial spirit that's in the region? And we have that, I think. It's there. It's just make sure that we foster it even more.
I was going to comment, and I couldn't agree more. I think encouraging business recovery. I think one of the challenges we face in this environment is a reliance upon government to save the day, meaning the federal government to come in and save the day, when really it's about allowing us to do what we do best. And rather than creating a situation where those who've been laid off become part of the system, we need to be ensuring that we're actually creating jobs and creating opportunity, whether it's getting those people back to work in the jobs that they enjoy, or stimulating new job creation so that everyone can feel as if they continue to be a contributor to our economy. And my fear at this juncture, and one of the message points that I've been having with legislative leaders and elected leaders, is get people back to work. Let's create an environment in which we're creating jobs and creating and allowing us to do what we do best in this environment.
Absolutely. I think from a point of communication, the chambers really serve as that data-driven voice. We're the ones who are in contact with that business audience, and also a lot of the community audience. A lot of the reason people engage in the chamber is to have that closer step of contact to their broader community too. And so a lot of us have focused on a data-driven response to bring information from our investors. And then also as a step two, we're doing some industry roundtables, because some of these solutions really are unique to each industry sector. And so I know later today, Sandra and I are going to dig in with our energy sector a bit, the oil and gas sector, but we're going to do many of these. And it's really important to bring that information forward, because there are some collective response we can give, and then there are some very targeted responses we need to give as well. So yeah, thank you for all of that. I thought that was maybe the most important question today. I also wanted to touch on, and it's come up a lot on this call, the unprecedented collaboration of the region. I know each of us is working together in a more meaningful and connective way. For a lot of you, whether that's community, region, partners, share with us some of the things that have changed or strengthened for you during this time, because I know everyone is going to leave the experience we've had over the last 2 months a little changed, a little different, right, in our perspective. So I wanted to pitch that out. We talked a lot about the collaboration, but how has this moment changed your perspectives around that?
I'll jump in.
Go ahead, please.
Well, age before beauty. Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say that I don't know that people oftentimes appreciate the depth and the richness of the partnerships that already exist. And we had the Windsor tornado come through here 10, 12 years ago, and there were trucks rolling out of other communities to Windsor before the call came out to say help. And I think it's part of the nature of Northern Colorado. We help each other. Same on the business side. Our organizations work really well together. And I don't know that, it's not something we spend a lot of time talking about. We just do it. And so I would start with that. We already have good, strong working relationships at the public sector, private sector throughout the region. I think it's a real asset for us. I think those have gotten even stronger. And so it's a matter of degrees, but we already started in a good place. And even though we see the news stories about bad behavior and people getting, it is a tense time and all that, but it's also brought out the best of us in a lot of ways in terms of how we've worked well together and just kind of continuing the legacy that we already have.
Couldn't agree more. Mindy, did you have something you wanted to add to?
Sure. I would just add to that. For me, it's about perspective in that if we choose, I read an article about your current circumstances, and it's like looking through a really dirty window at a beautiful sun-filled garden on the outside. And if all you're focused on is the dirt on that window instead of what's happening on the other side in that beautiful sun-filled garden, that was the turning point for me. I already knew these relationships existed, so I knew where the partnerships were, and to get through this crisis together, I had to stop focusing on the dirt on the window, for lack of better words. So it was great to be able to pick up the phone and text David, and Jamie, and our legislators and Sandra, and I mean, we've never had a faster response from the governor in the midst of something like this. I mean, before this, until you really need them and they know that you've already established that voice in Northern Colorado. So it's just, if you're going to go through something like this, there's no greater place to do it than Northern Colorado, because the spirit of the community and the people is what makes it so great.
Absolutely.
I would concur with both Mindy and David. I've always said, when we try and get anything done here in Northern Colorado, no one community or no one entity goes at it alone. We really understand and we value and embrace that collaboration between all of our partners as we work with businesses, as we work with communities and everyone abroad to get that project done. I really believe Northern Colorado looks at everything from a regional perspective, and we put aside maybe some of our own individual needs to build out a greater Northern Colorado. And so during this pandemic, it's just solidified that belief that I have as we look at transportation projects we've had with I-25 in the past, and currently, as David pointed out earlier. But we don't do that alone. Our communities come forth, they put their money where their mouth is to get things done to help everybody out. And this COVID event has done nothing but strengthen that resolve, in my opinion, and just shown why Northern Colorado is the greatest place to live, in my opinion. And I'm proud of them. I really am. Everyone's done an amazing job.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I talked to Chris Mead this last week. He's actually the person who wrote the book on Chambers of Commerce, literally, and has worked for the American Chamber of Commerce Association execs for, 20 years ago. And now he's just bolstering the chamber community. And I said, above all things, I want to get across, he called to talk about energy sector in Greeley. I said, is really that special cooperation that happens here that I think truly, as has been mentioned today, can serve as a model for a lot of communities. Don't go it alone if you can help it. So I'm going to wrap the show today with a quote about embedding resilience in our business communities, because I think that's where we're all headed. Resilience is about being able to overcome the unexpected. Sustainability is all about survival, but the goal of resilience is to thrive. And I think that's what we want for all of our business communities, the collective Northern Colorado region, and it's what we can really make happen here. So I want to thank all of our special guests for joining us today and the special role you play in the daily work we do as a collaborative. For our valued investors, please keep your eye out. Every other Tuesday for this show, we'll keep bringing you partners that we work with and issues that are important to us. Our goal is to help you stay in touch as we work through and respond to the challenges and opportunities we have. On behalf of the Greeley Area Chamber of Commerce, our city and elected officials and our regional partners, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you at Common Grounds in the future. Be safe and take care of each other. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.